And this is a difficult topic to talk about because I know if I just did a topic about cold water therapy, all the hype is there. If I do a topic talking about which specific supplements you could do to boost your testosterone, oh, the science is there. We're all excited about that. But the moment that we talk about fear and the truth behind what's actually happening inside our consciousness, which is that fear is running our life, it's like your head might not even let you take in this information because it is literally needing to stay in control. And if your heart starts to run the show, if the heart steps on the throne of your decision-making and becomes the benevolent leader of your life, the heart-centered leader of your life, you're going to go out there and start doing a bunch of things that it can't predict the outcome of, it can't control the result of. And that's too scary. So fear very much runs our lives, and it is very influential. And everyone has a nervous system. So from a nervous system perspective, if we go head and heart and we use that framework to create contrast and understand what's happening with fear, if we use our head and our heart from a nervous system perspective, the heart is parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. It's what Joe Dispenza says it's a place to change. Being in your head, being in the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, that's not a place to change. You can't consider innovation and all these creative ideas and go after your dreams and whatnot when you're stuck in your head because you're in fight or flight. Your nervous system shuts down. Your prefrontal cortex, which is the creative, strategic thinker in the brain, essentially the part of us that allows us to think clearly, gets shut down. And we just go into reactivity mode. We're in head hypnosis of a more intense reactive flavor, right? So to put this is context setting to understand that fear rules our life. Fear is the biggest thing that determines the quality of our life. And I honestly believe that fulfillment comes from being in our heart, which is the opposite to being in our head, which is the opposite to being in fear. So if you want to learn to have the most fulfilling life, the best experience of your life, you got to learn to overcome fear. Fear is where it is at. It is the only thing that blocks you. And to give you an example of how that looks from a purpose perspective and creating your best life perspective, let's pretend you didn't have fear at all over the last 5 years. No fear. So you got a bunch of dreams, you got a bunch of things you want to create. What could you have done if you didn't have fear at all? If you were completely fearless, which is impossible, but if you were completely fearless, what would you have created, executed on, done over the last 5 years? You could easily go, I'm going to launch a best-selling book. I'm going to take out a $200,000 loan to promote a seminar tour around Australia and the US. You could hire a bunch of salespeople to push your things. You could speak fully, loudly, authentically, expressively, preaching the messages you care about most to the world. You would tell the truth all the time. Not that you're a liar, but we only say what we think is going to be accepted as a general political correctness rule of thumb in this society. The people that have the courage to speak their truths are those that get respected and noticed and seen at a higher level. So if you didn't have any fear, you would be doing that. You would be confidently putting yourself out there. You would be banging down doors to get opportunities, just calling people, just calling companies and saying, hey, I'd like to get your attention. I'd like to talk to you about a solution I have for your business. You know, you could get business. You just call people. You just run a bunch of ads on Facebook and just get a bunch of leads and start calling because you wouldn't have the fear of rejection, right? So when we learn to navigate fear, everything becomes possible. When fear is ruling our life, only what our head perceives as safe is possible, which is a very limited window. It's only things that we've experienced already with high volume in the past, only the things that we're practiced in, because that is what our brain associates as being safe. So if we're being bound by fear, pretty much everything is limited. Everything is limited. So now that I've kind of preached to that, that's a summary of what fear is about. That's just me ranting on the broad picture of what fear is. But we all know how it feels to feel scared, anxious. We all know, we get it as an experience. It feels like we're going to die. And that brings me to the introduction of the 6 types of fear. if you imagine it as like a wheel, the diagram, and the 6 types of fear are on the outside of the circle, in the center of the circle is the thing that is the ultimate fear, the only thing that we're at a deep level really afraid of. And the deepest, truest, the primary fear that every single person has, that creates all the other micro types of fears that we're going to talk about, the other 6, the primary main fear is a fear of death. That's what we are programmed to. That's why the head is survival based, because it is afraid that it's going to die. Now, that's the macro fear. Every single fear that we have is a fear of death. And the way that we know that, I'm going to share a story in a moment that'll really hit this point home. But every fear we have is a fear of death, because it originates in our animal brain, in our amygdala, the fear center of our brain.